I just clicked the live button and you know, it twirls and twirls, and then we're live. Hey, good morning, Mike Cushman, and good morning, everybody, and welcome to Talking Niagara this morning. And we're glad to have you with glad to have you with us this morning. And yeah, morning, Dave. How are things?
Not bad, not bad. Yesterday I got some bad news about a friend of mine who's not well, and that was kind of sad. But anyway, things are going out okay with me. My life's a simple thing.
Yeah. Wake up in the condo, play around in the condo, go to sleep in the condo.
Eat in the condo. I forgot that.
Pardon me?
Eat in the condo too. I do that.
Yeah. Okay, Hurricane Melissa churned through Jamaica yesterday and then basically turned north towards Cuba. But by which time it had already died down to be a Category 4 storm, heading, you know, in heading to Cuba.
Only a Category 4. Only a Category 4.
From a disastrous hurricane to a Category 4 storm. So it did its damage on Jamaica, said goodbye, and headed north to Cuba.
Yeah, we have yet to have a full assessment of the damages done to Jamaica. Apparently, most of the money machines have already been emptied out. People, of course, panicked and took as much money out as they could, expecting the worst. Also, there are likely going to be a lot of gasoline shortages, you know, the typical.
Yeah.
Power, of course, is going to be an issue. I think
tens of thousands of people without power right now. Yeah.
Now we're thinking that this is they said this is the largest they ever hit Jamaica. We don't know that it completely historically, but we do know that it's the largest one in 178 years. So,
well, it's the largest one on record because obviously before that they probably didn't keep records. So there might well be stories about one that hit in 1592 or something.
Yes, exactly. So this is an unprecedented. Jamaica's been hit by Category 4, never a Category 5 like this one. Another issue with this one is the slow pace in which it moved. That means a lot of dump of water. This is going to happen to eastern Cuba as well. It's going to cut through a large swath of eastern Cuba, and that is the main concern, is the amount of water it's going to dump, because it's slow moving. It's picked up a lot of water and it's moved across. And of course, the issue of climate change has come up, and I know a lot of people will poo-poo the climate change thing, but one of the driving forces behind this force is the temperature of the water, which is 2 degrees higher than it normally is. When you get a lot of warm water like that, that fuels a hurricane. So
Cuba's already moved 500,000 people, evacuated them away from their homes.
That's good. I don't think the Jamaicans could have done much, but we can be. I think it's even before it really hit much. It already killed a couple of Jamaicans. We know that it's going to be. The international community, I think, has got to step up big time and supply food, water, gas, and probably temporary shelters until things settle down there. We are very lucky that we were able to track this and put out a lot of warnings ahead of time so that Jamaica could prepare as well as it could. As a matter of fact, before landfall, the Jamaicans said there's nothing more we can do. We just have to knuckle down and bear it right now.
They tied down everything that could be tied down in the hope that it wouldn't take your house away. And if it took your house away, well, that's just what happens with these hurricanes, right?
Yeah, one of the images I saw is an entire roof of a house being lifted right off. Now, the roof looked fairly modern. It was well built. It had it looked like modern sheathing on top, and it didn't matter what was on top of the roof. The whole roof was just lifted up and taken right off the house. And so we're going to find a lot of that. The damages are going to be extraordinary, but hopefully, because of the long warning, we may have been able to reduce the amount of fatalities. But the thing is, we got to get in there soon. I guess there's crocodiles swimming all over the place. It's released a lot of crocodiles out of their ordinary places, and they'll be swimming around, and that's going to be an issue. They said this is a no joke issue, meaning those crocodiles could be, you get children and older people and things like that. And a crocodile, if it's hungry, it's going to eat you.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't. It's severely affected psychologically by this storm, of course. Especially if it's been ripped up and moved location.
Yeah. So now it's not going to the U.S. Apparently, it's going to be missing the U.S. It's going to go into the Bahamas, but it's going to miss the U.S. And that's apparently because there'll be massive tariffs on it. So it's going to avoid that.
Well, yeah.
I think Trump will take credit for that. If it weren't for the massive tariffs on hurricanes, we would have been demolished. I saved the world. I've saved Florida.
Yeah. Well, I thought that if it was hitting a more southerly route and hitting Jamaica, it would probably end up going into the Gulf of Mexico. But apparently it's shifted its path north and heading in the typical along the Gulf Stream.
Yes. So
where it will downgrade as a storm, go from category 4 hurricane to and downgrade over time.
It still could be strong as a category 3 when it gets close to Bermuda. So Bermuda may be going to be affected by this in many negative ways, but at least it'll have a long time to prepare.
And again, with somewhere like Bermuda, you can't evacuate people other than to somewhere like the US.
Yes, and I don't think they need to evacuate too many people. Yeah. Or like Bermuda is a fairly wealthy place, so they probably have a lot of preparations available for a storm.
They do get a lot more storms than Jamaica because being on the they're on the normal northerly path through to through the Caribbean that normally the hurricanes normally take on their way to Florida anyway.
Yeah, all I know is it's going to go into, of course, the North Atlantic basically, and who knows, maybe the Irish will be confused by a bunch of. Maybe the Irish will be confused by
the potential is for a storm like that. It may make landfall on places like Georgia or Delaware or somewhere like that, or even New York. You remember the one that hit New York a few years ago? It just swept up the East Coast and then dumped on New York.
That's not likely what's going to happen in this case, and I'm pretty sure that if anyone's going to get hit with the remnants of the storm, it will be Ireland, and they will be confused by all the coconuts that are falling out of the sky.
Well, yeah. So, and basically significant damage to residential property, housing, commercial property, damage to road infrastructure. This is what Jamaica's Prime Minister Andrew Holness said yesterday on CNN.
Yes, so I've got friends in Jamaica, the Kiwanians, that, as I've mentioned here before, we have probably the most unique district of any service club in the world, Eastern Canada and the Caribbean. Normally, when you make districts for whether it's Rotary Club or Lions or Kiwanis, you pretty much have a zone. Let's say Northwest United States, or
you can put a circle on a map.
Yes, but we have over 13 to 14 different countries in the Caribbean with Kiwanis clubs in them, and and Jamaica's got quite a few. And so does the Bahamas and those places. So I'm kind of worried about my friends in Jamaica right now. One of the ladies I know, she has a place right on the coast, right on the southern coast, close to Montego Bay, which would make it not exactly on the landfall, but very close to it. And so I imagine I hope her place is okay.
Yeah. All right. One thing well, we'll see over the next few days, I guess, who's affected. As Mike said, prayers to them all. And I'm sure they'll pick up, even if their homes have been devastated. I'm sure they'll pick up again.
Oh, they're a resilient bunch for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, also, just to note, the Jays won last night's game to tie it all up again.
Yes, I watched it. I was biting my nails there for a while, and I knew that it would be pretty important for them to win that game and take the momentum back after losing a heartbreaker 6-5 the night before. They did very, very well. They did very, very well last night, and they were able to shut down Ohtani. But Ohtani pitched very, very well, I'd have to say. I was watching his pitches, and I questioned them taking him out of the game. I'm glad they did, because that's when they started to score some more. But they have to save that arm. They used Ohtani in the game before.
They have to save that arm. Yeah, because he's got one of the most powerful pitching arms. But even that, sometimes I actually wonder. Sometimes I wonder, you keep a power pitcher on for one more inning, and maybe that does make the difference, because ironically, keeping him on for one more inning might well have just disturbed the Jays enough to have given them, to have kept it closer, right?
Yeah, that's all hindsight.
Yeah.
But as
I know,
the so-called baseball experts got it wrong when it came to this series. Most thought that the Dodgers would dominate completely. That hasn't been the case, actually. We've had 4 games now, and it's 2 games each.
Yeah, and I have to say, hey, I was on the side of the baseball pundits who were saying that that Dodgers would dominate. Stick my hand up and plead guilty to that one. I wish the Jays well.
I plead guilty to the faith method. I turn my back on, unlike we do here, I turn my back on all relevant objective truths about the series and just went on faith alone. So far, it has served me well.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. As of July 2025, the unemployment rate for Black youth was 23.4%, which is double the white population.
Yeah, the article really doesn't establish why that is. Now, there's a number of factors that we could talk about. Let me get the article up here. Yeah, so now we do know that the Black populations in Canada aren't doing as well academically in schools. That may be a factor. One of the things we've discussed here is an attempt by the Black population of Toronto to actually get their own school for Blacks only. What they want to do is remove blacks out of the current school programs because they feel that different ethnic groups are behaving as they think they should. The black populations are pretending to be sort of mavericks and against the establishment, and it's a bad thing to fall in line and be good at school. It's better to be the sort of on the fringe types, the ones that disrupt things, and they believe that sort of street smarts is better than academic smarts. Unfortunately, that's how the black populations have determined what's happening to kids at school. Now we find also that the Asians are doing extraordinarily well, and that is a cultural response too, partly, and the whites are doing in between. Is that part of the problem here?
Indians and Chinese are very well known in places that they have migrant populations in. Very well known for being very disciplined for having their children very disciplined at school, for being those that go to universities, for having a high percentage of doctors and lawyers and other professions. Now, and basically the white population is kind of, up and down. There's not any specific focus by parents in that kind of regard. But I think there's other factors going in play, and I have to wonder if there's discrimination in hiring going on.
There might be that residual degree of prejudice, but when you get an educated person who can prove their salt, when a company is hiring them, they, as you can see, South Asians and Asians and a lot of African blacks are doing exceptionally well. You have to say, is it a cultural thing? Is it a cultural response? We find this as a continuing question. Is there a element of racism, or is it mostly a cultural response by the black community and not elevating their academia? But in this particular case, when they're talking, it talks about a very well educated person who's done well and yet struggles to get a job all over the place, and wonders if there is that residual racism underneath.
The problem with discrimination in hiring, it's almost an impossible thing to actually prove, because it's the same with discrimination in housing, for example. How do you prove that you've been discriminated against? You may suspect it, but proving it is a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, so when I was unemployed a lot in my young years, like 18 to 25, 26 years old, in that zone, I found that it was nepotism that was shutting me out of a lot of jobs. If you went to General Motors to apply, if you had a friend, an uncle, a father, or something. Yeah. So my friends that never even got grade 12 would get jobs. And I'm thinking to myself, I know those guys, and do they really know what they're doing hiring those guys?
Yeah. And that was actually a lot with the school kids that I went to school with. How many of them went to Ford, Vosper, Thornycroft, and BAT, that were the big three employers in the city where I lived. But yeah, I kind of decided, I met some afterwards who said, why didn't you apply to Ford? You could have had a good life there. Like, I don't want to be on the production line. That wasn't me,
Well, one of the researchers here, Spiteri, Suzanne Spiteri, said that historically, in contemporary unemployment disproportionality affects Black youth in Canada, with respect being pretty clear, it stems from systemic inequalities, not just economic shifts. I would like to know, and this is something that's come up in the States, and I believe it's also come up in Canada, where they track Caribbean blacks and African blacks in North America and compare them to blacks that have been born here. And they find that the success rate of African and Caribbean blacks are much better and more on par with anyone else, given their qualifications.
So what's it about the people who are born here?
Shifting back to the cultural response of blacks native born to Canada and the U.S. So I think the systematic problems here is probably the foundation of it is opportunities in education and employment that were lost in the past because of a whole lot of prejudice, but that prejudice may not be here right now, but still is showing its ugly head as a result.
Mike is making a very important question. With migrant worker programs being abused, how many youth jobs are being taken away? Because typically, obviously, many youth jobs, a young person who's going to their first ever job typically has a lower wage than the average person, because they're still learning, right? And at least it used to be in my day. You used to have a lower wage than average, but you'd be bumped up after you've learned your job in a couple of years.
Yeah, that's pretty good. If you compare two black people, let's say one is a refugee from East Africa, let's say Kenya or something like that. We have a fair amount of Kenyans here that have escaped are political refugees, apparently. Now, when they come in, how well do they do compared to a native-born black person or white person or anyone else? Do they get a leg up from the government? Do they get a leg up from the government? Does the government make that they get employed?
Yeah, don't know. That's a very interesting question, right? So what can be done about it?
I don't know. It's if they're looking for outright bigotry, it's hard to find that now. Is it a sort of a cultural thing that's sort of gone, can't be seen in the radar, so to speak, but still exists?
Yeah,
I'm sure that happens.
I'm sure it does, but for these statistics to be that different, there has to be something big going on here.
Yeah, it's hard for me to look at that, because when I go to a doctor, I've had specialists from Africa. When I go I see all kinds of doctors and specialists and nurses from all over the world.
Yeah,
they are not. They are people of color of one way or another. I'm wondering why it seems to be mostly blacks that were born here, and in that situation. So, like I say, there might be a cultural thing, but when you have a black person that was born here and is well educated and finding hard to, and of course they're going to start to wonder, is it because I'm black, or and if you have this high rate of unemployment among black youths, well, let me tell you, do they do the follow-up? How well educated are the black youths compared to the other demographics? How well are they educated? How well are those black youths? What level of education do they have compared to Asians or South Asians or African immigrants?
There has been a distinct. I've noticed that there are many people who've got normal jobs, often have education well above the job that they're doing.
Yeah, well, it says here black youths are disproportionately directed to lower wage, precarious jobs and excluded from professional opportunities.
Yeah.
I'll shift it back to their education. Obviously, like if you've got a good education, are you being directed towards lower end jobs if you have that kind of education?
Oh, yeah, I know.
Are you being shifted towards those lower paying jobs because you don't have the education?
Yeah, and both of those are fair questions. And for example, I remember I remember when I was young, my first job, kind of bumping into the guy who was picking up the garbage from our company. Later bumped into him in a sandwich shop, and I kind of asked him the question. So, what you like? How come you're doing a job like garbage? What got you into that? Because he was a young guy like me. He said, well, I've got a degree in whatever, some highfalutin degree, and I couldn't find a job in it. So now I'm a garbage man. Like,
well, that happens to lots of white people too.
How much of that is going on?
Yeah, but where did he get his education? Was he a native born?
A good university, and but this is in Britain. It's a long time ago. Long time ago. So not comparable to here. But I'm just saying there are also times when people take jobs that are forced into taking jobs that are well beneath what their education is.
So when new Canadians come in and establish themselves in businesses and things like that, who do they end up hiring? They end up hiring people that they know or people from their community. Yeah. Is that part of the problem? When new Canadians of color, let's say South Asians or Africans, begin a company, they are more likely to hire people that they know and from their own community. And that's a way that shuts out everyone.
But you see, for example, I went into a Polish store the other day, and there was a young lady there who was at school age, doing the work. Looked to me like a spare time job. She was Indian.
Yeah, and believe me, Eastern Europeans have a history of being extremely prejudiced against Africans and people of color. God, they're even prejudiced against Roman Catholic or Orthodox Catholic. They have long, extremely anyway. It says here that Spiteri says Black girls are among the women are doing what they can, holding highest levels of education among women in Canada, but instead taking jobs they are beyond qualified for. Daily racism in the workplace, but I'd like to really drill down on this a little bit more. It says that this is a continuous thing that's happening. The racist thing, but I think it's more complicated than that.
Yeah,
basically, if I had a company, a small company, and I'm going to hire the people I know, my family people, or people I went to school with.
Actually, one of the things you see, I do have a small company. Right, I'm part owner of a small company now. I'm limited in who I can hire. I couldn't hire family unless they were qualified. Right, in order to work for us, you have to be qualified.
Yeah. So here you go. Would you make a conscious decision to diversify in your workplace, or is it just a matter of give me a qualified person? I'll take the most qualified that comes in to ask for a job.
We have taken people of all colors, and
based on what?
Based upon their ability to do the job.
Yeah, not based on DEI or
no, exactly.
any conscious effort to diversify your workplace. So it doesn't matter to you what they look like as long as they have the qualifications, right?
No, absolutely. It doesn't matter what they look like. It's the qualification. It's the qualifications. It's how, if I've got two people who come in for an interview, you have to rank them as to which one you prefer. And it's purely upon how you get along with that person that you rank that.
Yeah. Another thing that we're talking about it, we really don't have much experience that way, being white people in a white world, basically. And when we hear these experiences from Black people trying to get jobs, we have no idea what they're talking about, mostly because we haven't experienced what they have. And obviously, they've experienced prejudice somewhere along the line and fear that. And when they point that out, you get people like us saying, well, not us, but say, oh, I don't see it. I don't know where it is. I can't see it. Well, because you haven't experienced it.
Yeah.
So these young Black people are experiencing a problem getting jobs, and they're twice the average of unemployment, and so they know that there's a level of bigotry out there that's really not tangible for the rest of us because we haven't experienced it.
Yeah, I get it. I get what you're saying. One of the things I would have to say is in the people that we've engaged over the last few years, since I've been working there, we have people who've come on as as paralegals. We've had people who've come on as law clerks, and we've had placements. We had a lot more placements than we have had people working for us, obviously, because when people go through school, they go through and they go to a placement, and not all placements lead to employment. That's a fact of life. And we've had people of every color work with us. We've had Black people, we've had Indians, we've had one Chinese, we had 3 or 4 Russians, believe it or not.
Okay, so in your particular case, it isn't a factor. Where is the factor mostly? You see diversification for a guy like me, I see diversification in the steel mills. I see diversification in the auto plants. I see diversification in the power plants. You see there is, I don't know if it's so much of a conscious effort to hire people of color, but there is an effort to sort of diversify the workforce, basically, and to the affirmative action thing that was big in the United States. That worked initially. Is it still working, though? Is it still a thing that should happen? How this is being solved is we're just told that it's there, and young Black people say it is there, but it doesn't seem to be as tangible as it used to be. It used to be you were just shut out because your color. Is there an undercurrent effort not to hire Black people when you have somebody else, or is even it the undercurrent to hire people who were born elsewhere with the same amount of education?
One thing to point out, of course, is that put this into statistical light. Currently, approximately 4.3% of Canada's population identify as Black, with about 1.5 million Black Canadians across the country.
Yes. Now, do Africans and do Africans necessarily think of themselves as a Black, as part of the cultural Black experience in North America? Probably not.
Yeah. Fair question, because this is just the statistics are those that actually identify themselves as Black, right? It doesn't necessarily, it's not saying are they immigrant or anything like that.
Yeah. Is it there when we talk about Black, with a capital BLACK, how much of that is a North American experience of Black or a Western experience of Black? And that when you have other Black people coming from Africa, they may feel prejudiced because they have dark skin, like they're obviously Africans in a different way. And their identity as Black is not the same because they still have their cultural influences from the country they come from. So they would think of themselves more as Igbo or Yoruba or Ashanti or their local tribal affiliation or ethnic a thing. They may not think of themselves as generally Black. We find in Africa, you get like Hutus and Tutsis, which is an extreme example, but you get in Ethiopia, there are four different major ethnic groups, Oromo being the biggest one, and the other three I can't remember. And we find that they are more likely to identify in that group.
Yeah.
Within a place like Ethiopia, they would, like for instance, the Oromo would come to Canada and hang out with other Oromo and feel a cultural experience as an Oromo person in Canada, rather than the capital BLACK type. And so there's more to it here, I think. I believe part of the problem is the cultural response. I think it talks about Black youth being sort of directed to the lower end jobs. Is that because of their education level? And now the story here is about a well-educated Black woman that can't get a job, and she thinks there might be bigotry associated with that, her struggles there. But when you have Black youth born and raised here, and we know the education level of Black youth is lower than Asians and whites because they tend to drop out of high school, or at least that's what we're told. Is it because of their lower education levels that this is happening? So I think there's a number of things. But if that residual racism, which I don't doubt still exists here, how do you eliminate it? How do you identify it? We know these people are experiencing it because it's their lived experience.
And again, you know, that is one of these sort of things that how do you prove it?
How do you fix it?
And how do you fix it? Yeah. And we know that certain amount of this is certainly going on. And you know, I don't doubt that there are people who won't hire because they believe that Canadian Blacks are lazy or something like that. And I don't believe that. Personally don't believe that. But again, you know how you hear these stereotype things.
Well, this is something that's happened continually. It happens with different. The Irish got a lot of that 150 years ago. They're just way too lazy, and you don't want to hire them. What else we got? I think we should kind of move on from that.
We'll move on. We'll move on. Okay, so the next one we're looking at, Niagara food banks are unsure about how long they can sustain services.
Well, this is an issue that was going to happen anyway. We hear these predictions yearly, how much more they need, and the amount of contributions from the community and donations not keeping pace. You get something like the soup kitchen or something like that has a lot of local food markets and restaurants and that cooperating with them. You have a lot of money being brought in by donations, but the need keeps swelling.
Well, and the point being is that often it's the one people who can least afford it that give the most. But again, with any food drive like this, it's very tough to actually, for organizations like Project Share, to keep getting money. They need more and more money, more and more resources every week, because of the pressures, because of there's more and more people in need. And it's often the people who are in most need that are often the people who are giving most percentage.
Well, it says here, it says it succinctly here. It says the nexus of economic factors, namely high rents, mortgage rates, and food prices, are driving more people to food banks. And this is very important, putting pressure on the shrinking list of donors, both corporate and community. So the corporate and community donors are feeling the crunch of economic pressures. They don't have as much extras as they had before. So the amount of donations is not keeping pace with the amount of need. And that's because of the general, what they call here, nexus of economic factors.
Yeah.
So how the problem continues to happen, though, is whether it's Project Share, whether it's the Soup Kitchen, whether it's Salvation Army, you just have this swelling demand. And if you have that swelling demand, how do you meet it? And when the nexus of economic factors is resisting your ability to meet those needs, what do you do next?
Yeah, and again, other organizations. There's another article also yesterday, relation to Port Cares, and exactly the same issue in Port Coburn.
Of course, right? It's going to be all over the place. It's going to be like, this is not just localized here. It's going to be the general trend all over Ontario and pretty much Canada, and I'm sure that the same thing is affected south of the border. They have a little bit more of a problem coming up because of the resources that have been withdrawn from some of these programs because of the big bombastic bill that they've sort of passed down there. But ultimately, timing of its donations do not always match. So Mary Lou Suter, someone that I've known just by acquaintance through, I bumped into her because of what we do as Kiwanis. So she says the community care of St. Catharines and Thorold said her organizations is seeing similar increases in demand. Unfortunately, timing of its donations don't always match. Everything is cyclical, and we got a donation we usually get at the end of the year, came in now, so on. So so you're going to get a lot of donations around Christmas time, that kind of thing.
Randy West asked a curious question here. When it comes to raising food prices, what makes anyone resist in attending a food bank simply to add what they can afford to on their own?
Well, we find the rising increase in food banks. Like, for instance, the last time I talked to them a couple of years ago, like we continue to make donations to the Soup Kitchen Kiwanis, but the last time I actually talked to somebody about the effects was a few years ago, and what they had found was a rising need among seniors who have the ability to pay their rent, but do not have the amount of money required to eat well.
Yeah.
So what happens is you have seniors begin to show up, maybe once a week, maybe twice a week, maybe 1 week out of the month they'll show up. It's indicative of the fact that they don't have money for both a dwelling and good sustenance. I found the same thing happen when I talked to the Salvation Army. They found need growing among seniors at a time when they should be doing well enough. They should have sustainable incomes, but they don't. They're just falling a little bit short because their incomes are not rising at the same rate as inflation.
Yeah. And I have to say that, in fact, actually, it's got to be hard for anybody who's on a fixed income right now, because, in fact, one of the things that we have seen going on for quite some time, for probably the last 5 years, has been certain things, like the cost of bread has almost doubled.
Yeah, sort of, and this was going to continue, and for a number of economic factors. I'm not so sure how much the tariffs are affecting this, but we saw a general trend of growing grocery prices prior to the latest trade disruptions that we have had. Of course, we get a lot of our vegetables and things from the United States, and secondarily from Mexico. But there's that, I don't know, there's they find it very hard in the United States to keep up production because of the dwindling workforce. Unfortunately, they've relied too heavily on undocumented workers, and there's not as much of them now. So if the products are in the field, but they cannot be harvested, we hear stories like that a lot. So there will be less available, and that being less available would push the prices up.
Yeah. Okay. So, the food banks are. But this seems to be a typical story that we seem to get every year about lack of food within food banks.
Yeah. Well, we find the story, like I mentioned before. This is not a new thing. This has been this particular announcement has been foreshadowed by every other announcement at this particular time, but we can see that this is a growing problem and has been growing, and the red flags have already been sort of put out there. But how much can the community respond to the needs that are out there? There is a limit. If that need continues to grow, and these nexus of economic factors, as they point out here, are an issue. In this particular case, this year, it might be a little bit more egregious because of these nexus of economic factors, basically, a reduction in the amount of donations. I don't think in years past they've had a reduction in donations. They've asked just for more. But the difference here is they notice a cooling of donations, and based on those economic factors. So the average person that's likely to give feels the pinch, so is going to give less.
Well, one of the things that I've seen noted by some people is they're saying Niagara councils could explore more emergency funding, rent relief, or partnerships with local grocers to stabilize supply. But it also occurs to me that municipal action needs to be taken in other ways, that we need more affordable housing built. And that's a municipal responsibility.
Well, that's they're trying along. Basically, we find that rents are dropping finally. Houses are dropping, so we might get a little bit of relief on that front. But the donation thing, that's another problem altogether. You have all those factors kind of ballooning the need, but I'm not so sure that. I mean, it's like the homeless situation. If you want to go there, it seems to be unsolvable in many ways, and this general trend towards the needs and wants of people seems to be unsolvable. Now they have that organization called GROW, and what GROW does is, as Quanians, we've given money to GROW, and what they do with it is they go in this particular case in Niagara Falls, they buy nutritious food, and they then sell it for very much lower than they buy it to people. So they don't give it, but they do screen the applicants based on their income level. So if somebody has a low income level, they are permitted then to go and buy nutritious food at prices that they can afford. Instead of paying $4 for, $8 for a bag of potatoes or whatever it is, they'll pay $4. They get very nutritious bread supplies that the bakeries haven't been able to sell, but they'll get them there instead of paying, I don't know, whatever a good loaf of bread costs now, $4, and now it's $2. Same thing. And they have a food education program. What they find is that people who have lower incomes end up buying and eating food that's not particularly nutritious. They will buy the cheap stuff like macaroni and all kinds of like pastas, anything to fill you up, but do not balance your nutritional needs. So that's part of the reason why they do it. So you won't be able to go in there and find junk to eat. You'll only find stuff that has a nutritional quality, and they are able to educate people when they come in. Look, are you getting enough vegetables in your diet? You can afford them now. Here is the broccoli for cheaper. Here is the asparagus for cheaper. Here's your bok choy for cheaper. So don't forget to include them in your diet. Multigrains and things like that. So they have an education program where not only do they provide nutritious food at a cheaper price, but they actually try to educate the people who are coming in, because they found that people who are lower incomes have habitually bought stuff like Kraft Dinner and stuff like that, which will fill them, but not necessarily meet their complete nutritional needs.
It'll mean they're not starving, but it doesn't mean that they are eating good food.
Yeah, what the main one of the main inputs of this is to educate people to make sure that they stay healthy. And there's a lot of reasoning behind that. If the poor people in your society are at least well fed, have a balanced diet, you're going to have to pay a lot less later on when it comes to hospital fees, and doctors' fees, and all that. So it removes a strain from the healthcare.
Yeah, it has a healthcare benefit, which is one of the arguments, of course, that those people who believe in universal basic income put forward, is that people, you have less call upon things like food banks, and B, you have a healthier populace.
Yeah, I think that as long as somebody has a job, let's say somebody's got a job, and let's say you have a particularly you're not exactly the most gifted person, and you can handle being a dishwasher, but you really can't learn how to be a mechanic and all these other things, or an accountant, but you can wash dishes in a restaurant, right?
Yeah.
So what that means is you don't really have the gifts that let's say you're just not really good academic, maybe you can't learn easily or whatever, and so that puts you in the back foot right away. That means you are always at risk at never eating properly or getting proper housing. But if you do have the universal income, then you can go to work every day, and your income is supplemented so that you at least have a roof over your head and enough money to buy nutritious food.
And it also ensures that that you've got especially if you have access to good healthcare, that ensures that you stay healthy.
It also helps somebody, the employer too. Let's say you're using that example as a dishwasher, they may go through tons and tons and tons of dishwashers, because each different dishwasher is going to make a few more cents washing dishes over there, or whatever, or go over to another menial job somewhere. But if a person comes in and likes their job, despite the fact that it's low paying, and is comfortable staying there because their income is supplemented, and they don't have to stress out about trying to get 25 cents more per hour over there than over here, I think that might help. We do have to recognize the fact that there are a lot of people with a lot less abilities to employ themselves or be employed. And if you can interrupt that by making sure that they have a sustainable income. But the thing is, are they working? And I think that's a crucial part. If somebody is honestly working and working at a menial job that can't make money from, but goes to work and does their 40 or more hours a week, and their income therefore it would be subsidized so that they can actually rent a place and have have healthy food. I think that's a positive in the long run. It sounds like socialism, but it's not. But the fact of the matter is, you find this even among capitalists saying the same sort of thing. Get them working. Right now, the way things appear is that you're, the popular, I'm not sure if it's true or not, but the popular conception is that somebody on welfare loves to be on welfare because they don't have to go to work and get money. So this is not welfare, basically. It is you go to work, you do the best you can, and we'll top your wages up so that you could at least afford a decent life.
Yeah, and basically Betty's saying if you can pay bills and food and rent, you're okay, but not rich.
Yeah, you're going to still have a pretty good life.
Yeah,
but the stress factor among many people at that lower income level is intense because they're always wondering if they're going to have a roof over their head, or are they going to be able to buy proper food. They're going to be able to buy Kraft dinner all day long, but are they going to be able to buy fresh vegetables and things like that?
See, something like Kraft dinner will fill you up, but it's not always the most healthy meal on the planet.
No, it gives you lots of energy.
You don't get fiber and things like that, which you would get if you were to eat some bok choy. And hey, it's the second time we mentioned bok choy on the show for deliberate reasons, because most people probably wouldn't even know what bok choy was.
Well, it's one of my favorites.
I like it.
In my particular case, I like to eat the vegetables raw as well as cooked. The bok choy is a really good one to eat raw. So, I don't know. It's just one of my faves. Yeah. But that's why I think I brought it up.
Okay. Okay. Let's just time to end the show with this one. Hey, if you've got old Canadian Tire paper money around, it might be worth more than you think.
Yes. Apparently, it's still worth something, and you can still cash it in. Apparently, but you can't cash it in everywhere. You have to store apparently.
Well, yeah, but what I'm saying is they're actually saying that there's a collectible market out there.
Yeah, that too. Now the article, of course, it's been a couple of days since I read it, but it goes on to say, yeah, it's still worth some money. So if you want to cash it in, you can. If it's the paper stuff, you have to do it at the stores, I think. But you can't do it at associated places like Mark's Work Warehouse or something like that, because the system now is redeemable at all the stores associated with the CTC, the Canadian Tire Corporation, which includes things like Mark's Work Warehouse, I think.
Well, I traded mine in long ago. I traded mine in long ago. Absolute ton. When now all of my Canadian Tire money is actually on a card.
Yeah, I think they have these donations where you can put your Canadian Tire money at different times years ago. If you wanted to donate your Canadian Tire money to charity, I think I did. I think when I had whatever I had, I did that with it.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people did. But nowadays, most Canadian Tire money is actually held on, on plastic card anyway.
Yeah, it's
yeah.
Well, what's that triangle system or something they have? triangle thing.
Okay. Before I even knew what Canadian Tire money was, I have to say I found up in the northern reaches of Scotland at a place called John O'Groats. I found this this bar that was that put up on the wall various types of money from around the world. And do you know what they had there?
Canadian Tire money.
Yeah, they had 10 cents of Canadian Tire money. You know,
well, you know, a Canuck made his way up there. Probably tried to buy a beer with it.
No, probably fell out on the floor or something. And the person said, "What's that?" And then they explained Canadian Tire money. And went, "Oh, okay." And then they said, "Can I have it?" Is it 10 cents, right?
Yeah.
So
I heard like people who used to take, when I was traveling as young, when I was like 1973, 74 there, when early part of 1974, when I was backpacking through Europe, Morocco and Canary Islands and that, there was this myth that you could flim flam the locals with Canadian Tire money. Well, we had some, and we didn't intend to flim flam anybody with it, but we showed it to the locals, and they were well aware of it. Yeah, don't try to put that stuff off on me. You know?
Yeah, I'm not surprised in the least, but I'm also not surprised that there's actually a collector's market these days.
Yeah, of course. And as a matter of fact, I worked with a guy that was a sort of a small time criminal, and him and his friends stole a transport truck full of Canadian Tire money.
That must have kept them going for years.
So they stole a transport truck, well, a trailer with Canadian Tire money in it. I don't know how they intended to fence that off. You'd be getting like 2 cents for any 10 cents Canadian Tire money thing, but they had vast amounts of it. But their scheme didn't work. They got nailed, as you might think, because when boxes and boxes and boxes of Canadian Tire money start showing up, obviously they know something's up, you know?
Yeah. And in any case, who has crisp, unbent Canadian Tire money, right?
Yeah, so they that fella ended up, of course, going to jail.
Yeah.
Another guy I worked with stole a bunch of I don't know where these, like I bump into these every once in a while. Another guy I worked with, him and his buddies stole a dump truck and ripped the doors off of a storage unit, and got massive amounts of cigarettes. So they stole huge amounts of cigarettes, and they were going to fence them off, but they got caught. So I don't know.
All right.
Anyway, the last thing I'm going to do is call out Gaza, as I always do.
Yeah.
And for some reason, the Israelis saying that we have the perfect right to bomb, and we're going to bomb these areas that Hamas has broken their word and stuff like that. Hamas has come back and saying, no, these are rogue individuals that you're facing. So what's happened is the IDF is punishing Hamas for what apparently is happening is rogue fighters and sort of gangster types in the in Gaza. So there's going to be a lot of confusion there. And what we don't realize also is, I keep mentioning this, that Hamas was only one of the Islamic organizations in that area, and there are only one of the Islamic organizations that took hostages. But the IDF uses this as an excuse to go after whoever they want to. They killed a whole bunch of people again. That seems to be just what they do. So they bombed some tents. They bombed some areas that were supposed to be safe areas. I mean, they'll kill 20 people to get one, and sometimes they're not even sure who that one is. So I think it's outrageous, and I don't know how it keeps continuing. It was just bewildering to me. But anyway, pray for peace. Without further ado, I bid you adieu.
All right. See you tomorrow.